Dear friends, throughout the pages of time, there have been extraordinary leaders whose courage, vision, and determination changed the course of history. Empires rose and fell, centuries passed, yet their legacy continues to shine like a guiding star. Their choices shaped nations, their journeys inspired generations, and their names were etched forever in the memory of mankind. Because legends never die, they live on in every heart and in every chapter of history. But before we dive deeper into her incredible journey, don't forget to like and share this video. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing historical stories. In 356 BC, in the ancient city of Pella, the capital of Macedonia, a child was born who would one day change the course of history. This child was Alexander, the son of King Philip II and Queen Olympias. From birth, Alexander's life was surrounded by signs of greatness. According to legend, on the night of his birth, the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus burned down, an omen that symbolized the arrival of a world-changing figure. Alexander's father, Philip II, was a brilliant strategist and warrior who transformed Macedonia from a weak kingdom into a powerful state. His mother, Olympias, was deeply spiritual and claimed descent from the gods. She strongly believed that Alexander was destined for greatness, often telling him that he was the son of Zeus himself. As a child, Alexander received one of the finest educations in the ancient world. His tutor was none other than Aristotle, the great philosopher. Under his guidance, Alexander studied philosophy, politics, science, medicine, and war strategy. This knowledge gave Alexander a sharp mind and a vision that went beyond the borders of Macedonia. From an early age, Alexander showed remarkable courage and determination. One famous story tells how, as a boy, he tamed a wild horse named Bucephalus, which no one else could control. This act amazed his father, Philip, who declared that Macedonia was too small for his son's ambitions, and that he should seek a kingdom worthy of his greatness. This childhood of privilege, divine belief, and extraordinary training laid the foundation for the man who would later become known as Alexander the Great. By the age of 16, Alexander was already stepping into the role of leadership. When King Philip II went to war, he entrusted his teenage son with the responsibility of ruling Macedonia as regent. For most young princes, this would have been ceremonial, but Alexander took the task with the seriousness of a king. During this period, a revolt broke out in the northern region of Thrace. Instead of waiting for his father's return, Alexander seized the opportunity to prove himself. Leading the Macedonian army for the first time, he marched swiftly against the rebels. Despite his youth, he demonstrated remarkable courage, sharp tactics, and an ability to inspire loyalty among seasoned soldiers. His campaign crushed the Thracians, and a new city was founded in the conquered territory, named Alexandropolis, a clear signal of his ambition and vision. This early success won Alexander the respect of his men and the confidence of Macedonia's generals. The army began to see him not just as a king's son, but as a true commander in his own right. His bravery in battle, his calm decision-making, and his ability to share in the hardships of his troops created a bond of trust that would carry through all his future campaigns. For a teenager, this was an extraordinary beginning. While most princes of his age would still be learning under tutors, Alexander had already tasted command, victory, and responsibility. It was becoming clear that he was destined for something far greater than ruling Macedonia alone. In 336 BC, Macedonia was preparing for another grand campaign under King Philip II. To celebrate his power and alliances, Philip arranged a magnificent wedding for his daughter Cleopatra. But amidst the celebrations, tragedy struck. During the ceremony in Aegae, Philip II was assassinated by one of his bodyguards. The sudden murder of the king threw the Macedonian court into chaos. Who would succeed him? Suspicion and fear spread. But within days, all eyes turned to 20-year-old Alexander. Though still young, he had already proven himself as a capable commander and a decisive leader. With the backing of the army and key generals, Alexander was crowned king of Macedonia. However, the news of Philip's death spread quickly across Greece, and several city-states saw this as an opportunity to break free from Macedonian dominance. Thebes, Athens, and other Greek cities began to stir with rebellion. They believed Alexander, so young and newly crowned, would not be able to hold the empire together. Alexander responded swiftly. He led his army south into Greece with remarkable speed, catching the rebellious states off guard. The most dramatic confrontation came at Thebes. Refusing to surrender, the city defied Alexander. In a brutal display of power, he ordered the city to be destroyed. Thebes was burned to the ground, thousands were killed, and survivors were sold into slavery. This harsh act shocked the rest of Greece. Athens and other states, realizing Alexander's determination, quickly submitted. At just 20 years old, Alexander had established himself as a ruthless but commanding ruler. The message was clear: rebellion would not be tolerated, and the new king was as formidable, if not more so, than his father. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor, officially beginning his legendary campaign against the Persian Empire. His army of about 40,000 men, though far smaller than Persia's vast forces, was well-trained, disciplined, and above all, inspired by Alexander's presence. The first test of this bold invasion came at the river Granicus. The Persian satraps of Asia Minor had gathered their armies along the riverbanks, determined to stop Alexander before he could advance further into their territory. As the Macedonian army approached, many of Alexander's generals advised caution. The river was deep and fast-moving, and attacking across it against a fortified enemy was extremely dangerous. But Alexander was not a man of hesitation. Mounted on his horse Bucephalus, Alexander personally led the cavalry charge straight into the river. The clash was intense. Persian cavalry tried to overwhelm the Macedonians, but Alexander's bravery and tactics shifted the tide. He fought at the front, nearly losing his life when a Persian noble struck him, but his companion Clitus the Black saved him at the last moment. By the end of the day, the Persians were decisively defeated. This victory at the Battle of Granicus opened the gates of Asia Minor. One city after another surrendered, and Alexander presented himself not as a conqueror, but as a liberator from Persian rule. The campaign then moved southward. In 333 BC, near the town of Issus, Alexander faced his greatest challenge yet: the Persian king himself, Darius III. Darius assembled a massive army, far larger than Alexander's. Confident of an easy victory against the young Macedonian, Darius positioned his troops on a narrow coastal plain near the Paneris River. The battle began with a fierce exchange. The Persians tried to use their superior numbers to surround Alexander, but the narrow terrain worked against them. Alexander, leading his companion cavalry, launched a direct assault on the Persian left flank. With speed and precision, he broke through the lines and drove toward the Persian center, directly threatening Darius. Seeing Alexander charging, Darius panicked. Despite commanding the largest empire in the world, the great king turned his chariot and fled the battlefield. His army, seeing their leader abandon them, collapsed into chaos. Thousands of Persians were killed or captured as the Macedonians secured a stunning victory at the Battle of Issus. Among the captives was Darius's own family, his wife, mother, and daughters. In most ancient wars, the families of defeated kings would be enslaved, abused, or executed. But Alexander chose a different path. He treated them with the utmost respect and honor, allowing them to keep their royal dignity. This act of mercy shocked the Persians and elevated Alexander's image as not only a warrior, but also a noble king. The victories at Granicus and Issus were more than just battles. They were statements. Alexander had proven that he could defeat Persian satraps and even the great king himself. With Asia Minor secured and Persia's prestige shaken, the road to greater conquests lay open. In 332 BC, after his victories at Issus, Alexander turned south to secure the coastal cities of the eastern Mediterranean. Among them, the island city of Tyre stood as the most defiant. Built half a mile offshore, Tyre was surrounded by massive walls and a powerful navy. The Tyrians believed their city was impregnable. Alexander could not leave such a stronghold behind, for it threatened the supply lines and communications. Thus began the siege of Tyre, one of the most remarkable military operations of antiquity. For 7 long months, Alexander's engineers built a massive causeway stretching from the mainland to the island fortress. Under constant attack from Tyrian ships and archers, the Macedonians advanced slowly but relentlessly. The Tyrians resisted fiercely, even setting Alexander's siege towers on fire. But Alexander responded with innovation. He assembled a fleet from conquered Phoenician ports and launched a naval blockade. With land and sea pressure combined, the defenses of Tyre finally collapsed. In a brutal assault, Alexander's men stormed the city, ending the 7-month resistance. The fall of Tyre was not only a victory of strength, but also of perseverance and ingenuity. From Tyre, Alexander marched into Egypt, where the response was dramatically different. Instead of resistance, he was welcomed as a liberator. The Egyptians, long resentful of Persian rule, saw Alexander as the chosen one who would free them. In gratitude, they crowned him as pharaoh. During his stay, Alexander founded a new city on the Nile Delta, Alexandria. He envisioned it as a great port that would link Greece and Egypt, a cultural and commercial hub. In time, Alexandria became one of the greatest cities of the ancient world, home to the famous library and lighthouse. Alexander also traveled to the temple of Ammonius at Siwa Oasis, deep in the desert. There, the priests hailed him as the son of Ammonius, linking him to divine status in Egyptian tradition. For Alexander, this was more than a religious honor. It confirmed his belief in his destiny to rule not just as a king, but as a godlike figure. In 331 BC, the destiny of empires was decided on the plains of Gaugamela. After the fall of Tyre in Egypt, Alexander marched east toward Mesopotamia, where Darius III had gathered the full might of the Persian Empire. This would be the decisive confrontation, a battle that would either crush Alexander's ambitions or bring down the greatest empire of its time. Darius chose the wide plains near Gaugamela, modern-day Iraq, as the battlefield. His forces numbered over 200,000 men, including war elephants and deadly side chariots, vastly outnumbering Alexander's army of about 47,000. Confident in his numbers, Darius believed victory was assured. But Alexander was no ordinary commander. On the morning of October 1st, 331 BC, under a blazing sun, he carefully studied the terrain. Unlike Darius, who relied on sheer numbers, Alexander relied on strategy, speed, and discipline. He ordered his troops to form a flexible phalanx, with cavalry positioned on the flanks. His plan was daring: to draw Darius into overextending his center and then strike directly at the Persian king. The battle began with Persian chariots thundering toward the Macedonian lines, their blades meant to shred through men and horses. But Alexander's soldiers opened their ranks at the right moment, allowing the chariots to pass harmlessly through before cutting down their riders. Meanwhile, Darius unleashed wave after wave of infantry, but the Macedonian phalanx stood firm. Then came Alexander's decisive move. Leading his companion cavalry on the right flank, he spotted a gap opening in the Persian line. With perfect timing, he ordered a wedge-shaped charge straight toward the heart of the battlefield, directly at Darius himself. Dust clouds rose, swords clashed, and chaos erupted. Seeing Alexander charging toward him, Darius panicked. Abandoning his golden chariot, he fled the field, leaving his vast army leaderless. The Persians, witnessing their king's flight, broke into confusion. Many fought bravely, but without coordination they were slaughtered. Alexander's victory was complete. The Persian losses were immense, while Macedonian casualties were minimal in comparison. The Battle of Gaugamela was not just a military triumph. It was the moment the Persian Empire truly collapsed. Alexander marched unopposed into Babylon, the jewel of Mesopotamia, where he was hailed as a liberator. Soon after, he captured Susa and Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of Persia. Darius, disgraced and abandoned, fled east. Eventually, he was betrayed and assassinated by his own satrap, Bessus. When Alexander found his body, he mourned the fallen king and gave him a royal burial, showing respect even to a defeated enemy. But the message was clear. The Achaemenid Persian Empire, which had ruled for 2 centuries, was finished. Alexander was now the undisputed master of the known world. Alexander entered the city almost unopposed and stayed in the grand palace of Darius. But during a lavish banquet, fueled by wine and symbolism, he made a fateful choice. The palace was set ablaze. Flames consumed the majestic halls, reducing centuries of Persian glory to ashes. Some saw it as revenge for the Persian invasion of Greece, others as a rash act of passion. Whatever the reason, the burning of Persepolis marked the symbolic end of the Persian Empire and declared Alexander's supreme dominance over Asia. In 327 BC, Alexander married Roxana, the daughter of a Bactrian noble. Unlike his later political marriages, this was seen as a bond of genuine affection. Roxana was considered one of the most beautiful women in Asia, and Alexander's choice reflected both love and diplomacy. The marriage helped secure loyalty in Bactria, a region crucial for his eastern campaigns. Roxana accompanied Alexander on his later journeys, becoming his closest partner during war and conquest. After securing Bactria and marrying Roxana, Alexander turned his eyes further east toward the mysterious land of India. In 326 BC, he crossed the Hindu Kush and entered the Punjab region, a land of rich kingdoms and fierce warriors. His goal was not only conquest, but also expanding the boundaries of the known world. The most famous event of his Indian campaign was the Battle of the Hydaspes River, fought against King Porus in modern-day Pakistan. Porus commanded a massive army with war elephants, chariots, and thousands of soldiers. The elephants in particular created terror, a force Alexander had never faced before. Using clever tactics, Alexander crossed the river during a stormy night with part of his army, surprising Porus from the flank. Despite the terrifying elephants, Alexander's cavalry and disciplined phalanx eventually gained the upper hand. Porus fought bravely until the end, but was finally defeated. Instead of humiliating him, Alexander admired Porus's courage. When asked how he wished to be treated, Porus replied, "As a king." Impressed, Alexander restored him power and even expanded his territory. This respect for a defeated enemy showcased Alexander's unique blend of ruthlessness and generosity. Following this victory, Alexander pushed deeper into India. He faced smaller kingdoms, many surrendering quickly to avoid destruction. However, as his army marched further into the unknown, the soldiers grew restless. The tropical rains, extreme heat, and endless fighting took a toll on their morale. At the banks of the Hyphasis River, modern Bios, Alexander announced his plan to march even further east into the great Indian plains. But his men, exhausted after years of campaigning far from home, refused. They longed to return to Macedonia and their families. Despite repeated speeches and promises, the army stood firm in rebellion. For the first time, Alexander had to yield. With a heavy heart, he turned back, realizing that even the greatest conqueror cannot rule without the will of his men. On the return, Alexander's army sailed down the Indus River, encountering fierce resistance from tribes. The battles were brutal, but eventually, the Greeks forced their way through. Alexander was severely wounded by an arrow in one clash, nearly costing him his life. This injury highlighted both his bravery and his vulnerability. By 325 BC, Alexander finally left India. His eastern dream remained unfulfilled, yet his Indian campaign had already become legendary, a tale of ambition, strategy, and the human limits of conquest. But the return journey was even harsher. Marching through the Gadrosian Desert, one of the most unforgiving places on earth, Alexander lost thousands of soldiers to thirst and hunger. Supplies ran out. Horses were slaughtered for food. Even leather straps were boiled to survive. Yet Alexander, refusing water offered to him in a soldier's helmet, poured onto the burning sand, showing his men he would endure what they endured. By 324 BC, Alexander returned to Susa. There, in a grand political gesture, he married Statira, daughter of Darius III, and Persipolis, daughter of Artaxerxes III. At the same time, 80 of his generals married Persian noble women. These weddings symbolized his dream of uniting Greeks and Persians into one empire. But his own soldiers grumbled. To them, Alexander seemed to be turning away from Macedonian traditions. Soon after, tensions boiled over. At Opis, near Babylon, Alexander's veterans mutinied. Enraged, he dismissed them, declaring he needed no one. But later, in a dramatic scene, Alexander stood before them, reminding them of their shared victories. His tears broke their pride, and the army begged for forgiveness. Unity was restored, but the cracks in loyalty were clear. Then came the greatest personal tragedy. In the same year, 324 BC, Alexander's closest friend and general, Accession, suddenly died of fever. Alexander was devastated. He cut his hair in mourning, refused food, and ordered a royal funeral with godlike honors. To many, his grief seemed greater than even kingship itself. To Alexander, it was a sign of destiny slipping away. By 323 BC, Alexander returned to Babylon, the city he dreamed of making his empire's capital. His mind was already on the future. He planned the conquest of Arabia, and from there, perhaps the West, Carthage, Rome, and beyond. But fate had a different plan. In May 323 BC, during a banquet in Babylon, Alexander fell ill. For 11 long days, his fever worsened. He grew weak, unable to move, then unable to speak. His general stood by his bed, silent, as the man who had conquered the world slipped away. On June 10th or 11th, 323 BC, at the age of just 32, Alexander the Great died. Some whispered he was poisoned. Others believed malaria or typhoid struck him down. Perhaps it was a weight of wounds, exhaustion, and endless wars that finally claimed his life. His empire stretched from Greece to India, but without a clear heir, it would soon fracture into chaos. Yet his legacy remained. From the burning deserts of Gidroja to the glittering halls of Susa, from the mutiny at Opis to his final breath in Babylon, Alexander's last journey was one of triumph, tragedy, and mystery. He died young, but he left behind a dream of a united world, a dream that would echo through history forever. And so ends the journey of Alexander the Great, a man who lived only 32 years, yet left behind a story that time itself could never erase. From the rugged mountains of Macedonia to the burning sands of Persia, from the sacred temples of Egypt to the mighty rivers of India, his footsteps reshaped the world. He died young, yet his vision of uniting East and West burned brighter than his empire itself. Kingdoms collapsed, but his legend rose higher, eternal in history and memory. This was Alexander, the boy who became king, the king who became conqueror, and the conqueror who became a timeless legend. If this journey inspired you, don't forget to like the video, share it with those who love history, and subscribe to our channel for more epic stories of past.